legal television shows so good. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. And the psychology of why certain shows really excel and certain other shows don't is always kind of, I'm talking about it on my podcast, so at least I find it interesting. I would posit that legal television shows really aren't that interesting. They're not. If anybody who's ever been inside of a courtroom or part of a legal proceeding knows legal proceedings, they're boring as hell. They're very procedural. They're very paperwork based. They're very arcane. Why? Because in an actual courtroom, what you're working on is the mechanics of the law in front of you. One of the most dramatic cases I ever worked on in civil court had to do with the specifics of who was going to pay for a specific part of an emergency response. But that required interpretation of a law that was buried in 6 other laws, that was part of 8 other statutes that involved. It was a case that no jury was going to be part of because it was against the state. And it was a case that not even the other side fully understood because they didn't think they needed to. That's why I won. We don't like courtroom dramas because they reflect an actual courtroom. We like them because they're dramas. And truth be told, that drama could play out anywhere and it would be just as exciting. Case in point is the CBS show Bull. Stars Michael Weatherly, who plays Dr. Jason Bull. I've been watching this show lately, and that's why it's on my mind. It's a different take on the courtroom drama. It is a trial room consultant who has his team, and they work with lawyers and defendants and everything else to pick juries and sway cases that way. What we like about courtroom dramas is the fantasy that good always wins in the courtroom. That's what hooks us. This belief that the good guy always has the advantage, or the honest man always has the advantage, when in fact that's rarely the case in a courtroom. And it's not because the truth doesn't win out in court. More often than not, it does. How you pick that. Give me the facts and I will give you the law. So then if we can, that's a famous phrase that people say, give me the facts, I will give you the law. It doesn't mean you tell me the facts and I'll tell you the law and we'll figure out how the two meet. It's give me the facts of the case and I will craft the law to fit it. That's what lawyers do. We don't just look at laws and say like, well, objectively, you broke this law. No. Lawyers make an argument based on the facts of the case. Your Honor, clearly, the facts of this case are similar to this other case where the law was applied this way, therefore you must apply the law this way in this case. That's the game of being a lawyer is not a game of actually knowing the black letter law. It's a game of being a master of research and knowing how to bring up what they call precedent or prior cases and use those to influence the judge or the jury. In the case of a jury trial, you're also using the facts of the case to influence them, and you're playing little tricks along the way. Like if I ask a question, lawyers will sometimes ask a question that they know will be objected to, simply to have the question out there in the air, and then they'll just immediately withdraw the question. For example, say I've got a witness up on the stand. I'm trying to discredit the witness or trying to add an element that makes the witness's statement unreliable. Did the guy have an affair? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. On the night you said you were watching my client commit the crime, were you in fact not engaged in a torrid affair with so-and-so? Whether it's true or not, if I have a reasonable backing for the question, I'm not in contempt of court because I have a reasonable backing for the question. But if they object to it, I can simply say withdraw. I withdraw the question about your torrid affair. When you withdraw the question, technically what that means is that the jury can no longer regard that information. That information was never answered, and so it is allegedly never part of what the jury thinks about. You can't unring a bell, though, is the phrase, which is why lawyers in a trial are really trying to be on their game and object. And sometimes, if a lawyer is doing a really good job of questioning a witness that is for you, you just start objecting. You object to everything. And you break the flow of the questioning, giving your witness a chance to breathe and confusing the issue for the jury. Now, the jury can go back and read the transcripts as well. Those are provided for them to help them come to their decision. But keep in mind, a jury trial, and I learned this in my evidence class in law school, a jury is not 12 of your peers. It's 12 people who are too stupid to get out of jury duty. And the people you pick, you don't pick them. They're not randomly selected. A pool of potential jurors is randomly selected, I grant you that. But from that random pool, the lawyers pick who they want to go on the jury in a process known as voir dire. Going back to the show Bull I just talked about, they focus a lot on the voir dire process. They make it very dramatic. But what you spend a lot of time doing in voir dire is filtering out people who you think won't be sympathetic to your argument. Now in Bull, he's got like this crazy algorithm and he can like pinpoint who is going to be in favor of them or who they can possibly, sway with persuasive arguments, and they'll craft their arguments to them. But in reality, what you're doing is you're sorting for, in cases of, got a young, let's say, African-American defendant. He is accused of a horrendous crime. I'm 100% going to sort out anybody who would not be sympathetic if I'm the defense attorney. I'm going to go after anybody who possibly would be unsympathetic to that position based on statistics and based on everything else. And if I'm the prosecutor, I'm stacking that jury box with 12 different versions of Trump. It's a little pejorative, but you get my point. And when you come down to it, you realize that these are vagaries in a courtroom that really don't play well on TV, unless, of course, you have the captivating actors who are fiercely deliberating over every single decision. No. The one thing shows typically get right is that most of your case is over by the time you've selected your jury. Number one, 98% of cases do not go to a decision. Why would you? Why would you leave your case up to the uncertainty of a jury? Usually, if somebody's in front of a jury, if it's a civil case, they have a price. And if it's a criminal case, both the prosecutor and the defendant have some idea over where they can meet to settle the thing. In the case, unfortunately, in a criminal case, that often means pleading guilty to something. You plead out on something. In a civil case, there's a price in there somewhere. There's always a price. It's frustrating, real life court. Because in real life, oftentimes a win is just not a loss. In real court, sometimes, not only does the good guy not win, the good guy loses. And sometimes, the good guy losing means an innocent person is going to plead to a crime they didn't commit to get out of sentencing on the crime they also didn't commit. Because there's no evidence to support the fact that even though they are innocent until proven guilty, they can't prove their innocence. Because 12 people on a jury are too stupid to figure out that their guilt has to be proven, not their innocence. We can talk more about that in a future podcast. Today I'm running out of time. This is a bit of a ramble on a Friday. Forgive me. We didn't do a podcast yesterday. Also forgive me. My producer gave me the day off. It was very nice of him. My producer does that periodically, to let me kind of focus on acting and writing and things of that nature. Also, the work that pays my bills, which is not this podcast. I wish it was. It'd be kind of funny. but I don't think anybody's going to pay me enough money based on 10 minutes of work a day to pay my bills. That would be interesting. I probably need to have other talents before that's the case. In the meantime, thank you for listening. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.